They say age is just a number, but for the chosen ones, it's not even that. It's a misreading of something much deeper. When people try to guess your age, they almost always get it wrong. They see your vibrant energy, your glowing presence, and assume you're far younger than you are. And while science might point to genetics or lifestyle, the truth lies in a place no lab can measure. It's not what you eat or how often you work out. It's who you are. There's a light in you that doesn't fade. It doesn't dull under pressure. It doesn't grow dim with time. In fact, it gets brighter. What people don't realize is that what they're witnessing is not just youth, it's mastery. You've done what most never figure out how to do. You've learned to live without letting the world weigh you down. You move through chaos without absorbing it. You carry peace not because life has been easy, but because you've chosen to anchor yourself in calm even while the storm rages around you. That's why you don't look your age. You've refused to let time define you. You don't just look young, you feel light. That lightness is not from a lack of struggle. It's because you didn't let struggle keep you heavy. While others walk through life burdened by bitterness, guilt, and societal noise, you walk differently. You are not numb, you feel deeply. But unlike many, you don't cling to pain or allow it to calcify your heart. You feel, you process, and you release. You know how to let go, and that, more than anything, is why you remain untouched by the erosion time brings to so many. Most carry the past like a second skin. You, instead, wear presence. That's your secret. You're not frozen in youth. You're anchored in now. Others try to understand it. They'll ask you what you're doing differently, what products you're using, what diet you're following. But it's not something they can imitate. Because what makes you radiant can't be purchased. It's not technique, it's alignment. You are connected to something higher. You've tuned into a deeper rhythm, one that most people can't hear because their lives are too loud. You've chosen purpose over performance, healing over hustle, peace over popularity. That choice rewrites your energy, and your energy, in turn, rewrites how you show up in the world. People see your kindness and think it's naivety. They mistake your glow for innocence. They assume that because you smile easily and speak gently, you must be easy to manipulate. But what they don't understand is that kindness is your choice, not your weakness. It takes far more strength to remain soft in a world that constantly invites you to harden. You've seen enough to become bitter. You've had every reason to build walls, but instead, you chose to remain open, to let wisdom shape you rather than pain. That choice, too, preserves you. You don't participate in the drama that ages others. You've stepped off the hamster wheel of comparison, competition, and craving validation. While so many are caught in the endless loop of trying to be seen, liked, or approved of, you already know your worth. You don't need the world's applause because your spirit claps for itself. That kind of inner affirmation doesn't just make you strong, it makes you free. And freedom, true freedom, is the most youthful energy there is. That's why you walk differently. That's why you glow. You've learned to detach from what drains you. Toxic relationships, pointless arguments, the need to be right, the urge to prove yourself. None of these things interest you anymore. You protect your energy not because you're selfish, but because you understand how sacred it is. Not everyone deserves access to your spirit. Not everyone is entitled to your presence. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to explain your peace. You simply live it. And that calm, that clarity, repels what isn't meant for you and preserves your light in a world addicted to noise. When others watch you bounce back from hardship, they don't understand. They think you're pretending. That no one can possibly go through what you have and still smile like that. What they miss is that your smile isn't fake. It's forged. It's been earned through darkness, through breaking and mending and becoming. You heal faster, not because you feel less, but because you refuse to let pain take up permanent residence. You transform it. You use it. You rise through it. And each time you do, you become more radiant, more rooted, more unshakably you. People see your life and assume it's easy. They assume your glow is effortless. But they don't see the discipline behind it, the emotional boundaries you had to build, the versions of yourself you had to bury, the people you had to walk away from. They don't understand the work it takes to remain untangled from the world's madness. They don't see the strength it takes to say no, the clarity it takes to walk alone, the courage it takes to keep choosing alignment over acceptance. Your connection to the divine is not a trend, it's your lifeline. Whether through meditation, prayer, or stillness, you draw your energy from a source that has no end. That spiritual connection isn't just your secret weapon, it's your sanctuary. It feeds you, it sustains you, it keeps you glowing when others burn out. That's why you're never fully depleted. That's why even when life hits hard, you don't wither. Because you're not drawing from a shallow well, you're drinking from something eternal. That's the part they don't see, and that's the part they can never replicate. So when they stare in confusion, trying to understand why you shine the way you do, let them wonder. When they try to categorize you, define you, box you in, let them try. You were never meant to fit in their framework of time, status, or understanding. You are here to break the mold. You are here to remind the world that beauty is not surface deep, that youth is not chronological, and that power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it glows. Sometimes it walks quietly. Sometimes it wears a smile so soft it makes the whole world question what strength really looks like. This is only the beginning. There's more to uncover. In the next part, we'll explore the invisible armor you wear, the spiritual sovereignty, the sacred detachment, the ability to evolve constantly while others remain stuck. Because your radiance isn't accidental. It's built, it's earned, and above all, it's divine. They thought they could define you. They thought your warmth meant weakness. They saw your glow and assumed it came easy. But what they didn't see, and still don't, is what it cost you to be this free. They don't see the nights you stayed silent, rather than defend your truth to the deaf. They don't see the energy you chose not to match, the drama you refused to entertain, or the paths you walked away from before they could tarnish your light. You are not unscarred. You are simply unshaken. While others tether their identity to conflict, you've become a master of detachment. You understand that holding on doesn't always mean strength. Sometimes it's what keeps people stuck. You've let go of friendships that no longer align, beliefs that limited you, and identities that were built to make others comfortable. You've released not out of apathy, but out of reverence, for your peace, your purpose, and your path. That's something most people don't have the courage to do, and so they remain entangled, exhausted, and aged by lives they don't even want. But not you. You've chosen to be light. That lightness confuses them. They can't understand how someone who's experienced betrayal, loss, and pain still manages to walk with grace. But you've never tried to avoid pain. You've just never given it a throne. Instead, you've trained yourself to listen, to feel deeply, yes, but also to let go when the lesson is learned. You don't rehearse wounds. You don't decorate them or let them define your worth. You clean them, bandage them with wisdom, and keep moving. And that movement, that forward momentum, is why your spirit stays young while others stay stuck. Most people don't realize that emotional weight ages faster than time. The bitterness they carry, the grudges they feed, the expectations they cling to, these are what slow them down and harden their glow. But you've refused to carry what isn't yours. You've chosen your battles wisely. You don't chase closure or explanations from those who never intended to understand you. You simply rise. Quietly, powerfully, consistently. You've learned to read energy faster than words. Your intuition speaks louder than someone's tone. You can feel intentions before actions. That discernment has become your compass. So even when people think they've hidden their motives well, you already know. You don't always call it out, because you don't need to. Some lessons don't require confrontation. They just require distance. And you've learned that walking away is sometimes the loudest response of all. They used to mistake your grace for gullibility, but that illusion only works once. You've let people think they could outmaneuver you because it revealed who they were. You've let people assume you were naive, knowing their underestimation was a mirror, not a measure of your worth. Every time someone tried to exploit your kindness, they ended up exposing their own emptiness. And while they watched you fade from their lives, what remained was not bitterness on your part, but confusion on theirs. Because they never understood how someone so kind could also be so firm, how someone so soft could be so unbending. But that's the thing about chosen ones. You are not either or. You are both, fierce and forgiving, soft and strategic, gentle but guarded. And that balance is what makes you impenetrable. People think boundaries are walls, but you've built something different. Your boundaries aren't meant to isolate. You use them to honor your energy. You know that not everyone can come with you. Not everyone is meant to sit at your table. You are done explaining your value to people who only speak the language of extraction. And that decision, though quiet, has given you back years of your life. Because every time you removed someone or something that drained you, you reclaimed your vitality. Every no you gave without guilt became a yes to your own radiance. That's why you don't move with urgency anymore. That's why you don't chase or beg or convince. You've realized that peace is expensive, and you're no longer willing to go bankrupt for the sake of being understood. You don't try to keep up with the world anymore. You walk beside it, observing it, but never letting it set your pace. While others are in a race to stay relevant, you remain timeless. Why? Because you're not trying to be seen. You're trying to be true. And that truth is magnetic. It's what draws people in. They don't even know why they're drawn to you. They'll call it charisma, or luck, or beauty. But deep down, what they're sensing is presence. And presence, real presence, is rare. Your presence holds weight not because you demand attention, but because you don't. You move with intention, not performance. You speak when there's something to say, not because silence makes you uncomfortable. And that restraint, that sovereignty, creates gravity. You don't need to prove your worth. You embody it. Every stage of your evolution has stripped something from you, but it's also revealed something more sacred. You've died 1,000 small deaths to become this version of yourself. The version that smiles without bitterness. The version that sees clearly but forgives anyway. The version that no longer flinches when old wounds are touched, because they're no longer wounds. They're wisdom now. You're not afraid to evolve. In fact, you welcome it. You're always becoming. Where others cling to who they were, You continuously step into who you're meant to be. That's why they can't predict you. That's why they can't define you. Because you've given yourself permission to outgrow every limited version the world had of you. That's what keeps you fresh, alive, and constantly moving. You are never stuck, not in your thinking, not in your identity, not in your spirit. They age in fear of change. You stay young by becoming. Every time you shed an old belief, an old wound, an old version of self, you make room for the new. You are not who you were yesterday, and that terrifies people who need you to stay small so they can feel large. But you will not shrink. You were never meant to. You are in rhythm with truth, not trends. You understand that some things never go out of style. Clarity, compassion, strength, humility. You live by those principles. And that consistency, that grounding in eternal truths, is what makes you feel untouchable. Because while the world shifts with every breeze of opinion, you remain rooted. They can't figure you out because you're not playing the same game. You're not here for likes, for applause, for momentary recognition. You're here for legacy, for soul growth, for divine impact. And that kind of presence ages in reverse. Let them wonder, let them question, let them assume. You are not made to fit their projections. You were made to transcend them. Keep rising, not for revenge, not to be seen, but because rising is your nature. This is the essence of being chosen, not because you asked for it, but because you were built for it. And in the next part, we'll go deeper into how you transmute energy, guard your power like sacred fire, and move through life with the quiet force of someone who answers only to something higher. You are not aging. You are awakening. They try to figure out your secret. They analyze your calm, pick apart your joy, measure your confidence like it's an act. But it never adds up. Because what they don't understand is that you've built a life from the inside out. You didn't assemble it for show. You cultivated it in silence behind closed doors where no one applauded or noticed. You found power in the quiet, in the shadows, in the moments where no one was watching. That's why you carry yourself the way you do, unbothered, unshaken, unmistakably whole. Your radiance has never been for display. It's an echo of the work you've done in places no one was brave enough to go within themselves. While others seek comfort in being seen, you've become comfortable being misunderstood. Because you know that truth, real truth, rarely makes sense to those still devoted to illusion. And your truth is simple. You do not exist to please, to prove, or to perform. You exist to align, to evolve, to become. You've mastered the energy of transmutation. Where others are consumed by stress, you absorb, process, and transform it. You do not allow stress to settle in your body like a toxin. You feel it, face it, and then reshape it into wisdom, into movement, into grace. That's why it doesn't stick to you. That's why you recover from things others would collapse under. It's not that you've been spared the weight. It's that you've trained yourself to carry it differently. You don't fold under pressure. You forge under it. Most people don't know how to handle their pain. They let it shape them into versions of themselves they no longer recognize. But you've refused to let pain turn you bitter. You've refused to let heartbreak harden you. You've found the narrow path where pain becomes purpose, where struggle becomes strength. That's why your presence is so rare. You're not defined by what you've been through. You're revealed by it. And yes, they try to get close to that glow. Some are drawn by awe, others by hunger. There will always be people who confuse your light with their opportunity. They see your compassion and think you're unaware. They sense your peace and mistake it for weakness. But what they don't realize is that you're fully aware. You just choose not to react. You've learned to protect your energy like sacred flame. You don't let just anyone close. You don't hand over access to people who haven't earned your trust. Your energy is not on discount. It never was. You've simply stopped allowing people to think it was free. That's why your boundaries are so sharp now. Not because you're cold, but because you're clear. You no longer explain your silence. You don't justify your solitude. You know the cost of peace and you pay it willingly. That kind of self-respect intimidates people who are used to others bending for them. But you no longer bend. You stand. Not in aggression, but in certainty. There was a time when you gave too much, when you explained yourself too often, when you tried to meet others where they were, even if it meant leaving yourself behind. But not anymore. Now you know how sacred your time is, how rare your frequency is. You're done dimming for rooms not built to hold your light. You're done shrinking just so others feel taller. Because you've realized that your presence is a mirror, and not everyone can handle their reflection. Some will feel inspired by you. Others will feel exposed. That's not your fault. You're not responsible for what your light reveals in someone else. You don't shine to shame, you shine to illuminate. But when someone chooses to remain in the dark, you no longer wait for them. You let them choose their path while continuing on yours. Your confidence is different now. It's not loud. It's not showy. It doesn't need to be proven. It simply exists, quiet, steady, undeniable. You're not trying to convince the world of your value. You've already decided what you're worth. That decision changed everything, because now no one's approval can raise or lower your value. You've stepped outside of the need to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. That kind of independence makes you look untouched by time, because you're not worn down by constant emotional negotiation. You are clear, and clarity is ageless. What truly sets you apart is not just that you're strong, it's that you've remained soft. In a world that rewards coldness and celebrates cynicism, you've chosen to stay open. You haven't let life harden you. You haven't let cruelty convince you to become cruel. That decision, though often painful, has preserved you, because softness is not weakness, it's strategy. It allows you to stay connected to your spirit while others lose themselves to bitterness. You still believe in goodness, not because the world has shown you plenty of it, but because you've learned to become the source of it. That makes you rare, and your rarity is why some people resent you. Because your existence is proof that another way is possible, that you don't have to lose yourself to survive, that you don't have to burn out to belong, that you can protect your peace, speak your truth, evolve constantly, and still be full of love. That possibility threatens those who've built their identity around pain. But you didn't come here to maintain their comfort. You came here to live in your own truth. You've also stopped apologizing for the space you take up. You no longer dilute your voice to make others feel secure. You speak when it matters. You stay silent when it doesn't. You've mastered the balance between assertion and surrender. You know when to hold and when to release. That discernment, that internal guidance, is what sets you apart. You don't move from ego, you move from knowing. And that knowing keeps you young. Not because it erases age, but because it erases unnecessary suffering. You don't carry dead weight. You don't cling to expired versions of yourself. You evolve again and again without shame. That renewal keeps your spirit fresh. That clarity keeps your energy clean. That evolution keeps you timeless. People may not say it to your face, but they feel it in your presence. The calm, the truth, the stillness that can't be shaken. They feel it when they try to provoke you and nothing happens. They feel it when they try to read you and fail. You confuse people not because you're complicated, but because you're complete. You've done the work most are too afraid to start. You've faced your shadows and made peace with them. You've stopped seeking and started embodying. And that embodiment is the real glow. This is why you look untouched by the chaos. Not because you haven't known it, but because you've stopped letting it claim you. This is why you walk into rooms and shift atmospheres. Not because you're trying to, but because your energy is different, refined, grounded, whole. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into what makes that glow indestructible, the spiritual truths you live by, the divine alignment that sustains you, and why people who try to tear you down only end up revealing their own fractures. Because you don't just survive, you illuminate. And your light can't be dimmed. You are not aging, you are ascending. They try to pull you down not because you are flawed, but because you reflect what they've abandoned within themselves. Your light becomes a mirror, sometimes soft, sometimes brutal, forcing others to confront their own neglected truth. You don't just walk into a room, you awaken it. You don't just speak, you remind people of what they once believed in, what they once dreamed of before fear convinced them to settle. And while some respond with admiration, others react with resistance. Because not everyone is ready to remember. Not everyone is ready to rise. But that has never been your responsibility. You were not sent here to drag others into their awakening. You were sent to embody yours, to live so fully in your own alignment that it becomes an invitation, not an imposition, a quiet, radiant call back to authenticity. You don't convince. You don't chase. You simply stand in your truth, and those who are ready will recognize the frequency, and those who aren't will misunderstand. Let them. Your mission is not to be understood, it's to be whole. Wholeness, after all, is your true glow. It's not perfection, it's integration. You've taken every broken piece, every shadowed corner of your past, and instead of hiding them, you've woven them into your strength. That's why your energy feels complete, because you no longer reject any part of yourself. You've turned guilt into grace. You've turned fear into fire. You've made peace with every version of who you've been, and that peace is visible. It lives in your voice. It shows in your eyes. It moves in the way you walk, not rushed, not restless, just sure. They say some people age like fine wine, but the truth is, you don't age, you refine. You distill everything you've been through into clarity. You burn off what isn't needed. You purify. And that refinement is what gives you your timelessness. You're not desperately clinging to youth. You're shedding the illusions that make others old before their time. You're not defined by nostalgia or fear of the future. You are rooted in the present, fully alive, fully awake. That presence alone disarms people. Because in a world of people trying to be everything, you are just yourself. No pretense, no performance, just truth. And truth, as rare as it is unforgettable. You don't have to try to be remembered. You just are. Because your energy lingers, not like noise, but like silence that leaves an imprint. And still, despite all of this, you remain kind. That's what makes your power so unshakable. Not the absence of scars, but the presence of compassion. You've chosen to keep your heart open even when life gave you every reason to close it. You've chosen to respond with softness, even when the world shouted for you to harden. You've chosen love, not the sweet, naive kind, but the fierce, grounded, unwavering love that comes from having faced everything and still choosing to care. You know that love is your weapon, your protection, your revolution, and you wield it with wisdom. You don't let just anyone near it. You don't give it blindly. You offer it fully, but only when it's safe to do so. That discernment, that strength wrapped in tenderness, is what makes you invincible. They can't shake someone who isn't afraid to walk away. They can't break someone who doesn't hold on out of fear. They can't control someone who doesn't need their validation. You are sovereign. And perhaps that's what bothers them the most. Your freedom. In a world addicted to approval, your self-containment is disruptive. In a culture obsessed with chasing relevance, your quiet self-assurance is unsettling. You are not frantic. You are not desperate. You are not performing for a seat at any table. You've built your own, and you sit at it without apology. That's power, not the kind that screams, but the kind that cannot be moved. People will try to label that power. They'll call it arrogance, coldness, aloofness, but you know better. You know the cost of your peace. You know how many layers you had to shed to get here. You've walked through fire and didn't come out angry. You came out aware. That's what separates you, awareness, the kind that can't be taught, only lived, the kind that makes you luminous. And yes, sometimes your glow will provoke shadows, not because you've done anything wrong, but because light always reveals. Don't dim to make others more comfortable with their denial. Don't shrink just because someone else chose smallness. You didn't come here to make others feel safe in their stagnation. You came here to become. Constantly. Boldly. Without waiting for permission. That's why you've outgrown every mold. Why you can't be defined by age, status, trend, or title. You are not static. You are ever expanding, always unfolding, always remembering who you really are beneath the layers life tried to bury you under. And that remembrance, that return, is what fuels your radiance. So when they stare, confused by your vitality, let them. When they whisper, wondering how you do it, smile. Because you know the truth. It was never about creams or workouts or green juice. It was about frequency, choice, intention. You chose peace. You chose alignment. You chose yourself again and again, even when it was hard, especially then. You've stopped trying to be timeless. You've become eternal, not in body, but in energy, in spirit, in presence. That's the part they can't copy. That's the part they'll never understand unless they're willing to do the work. And most won't. Because this kind of glow isn't given. It's earned, one boundary at a time, one healing at a time, one evolution at a time. You are not here to convince anyone of your light. You're here to be it, to walk in it, to protect it, and to let it guide you toward everything meant for you. Because what's meant for you doesn't require you to shrink. It meets you where you rise. So keep rising, not for the applause, not to prove them wrong, not to impress anyone. Rise because that's who you are. A soul in motion, a light unafraid, a presence that bends time. You are not aging. You are awakening. You are not fading. You are unfolding. You are not becoming less. You are becoming more. Always chosen.